So in today's video, we're going to be taking a break from my main content, which is all plant related, and I'm going to be showing you a project that I had to work on for school that took me quite some time. It ended up being around half an hour of presentation, and I've chopped it down quite a bit to make it digestible for this video. So, with that in mind, hi, I'm the Moss Man.
And this is my dogwood and capstone presentation. Without further ado, let's get into this presentation. Now that we've seen what the end product is, let's discuss how I got here. Starting from, let's say when I was 5, I've always loved playing with Lego. And sometimes in the basement I would create armies with planes and tanks, and my dad would do the same. Then we would have an all-out war. This is of course not so different from many other kids' experiences, but I never exactly grew out of my love for Lego. After this, I began making structures with complex mechanisms like candy machines. And eventually, we're at the point where I am in middle school. I'm in social studies class, and we have to create an art piece to go along with something or rather. I don't remember what, but what I do remember is I built a little tiny Lego Hagia Sophia, and it wasn't perfect, it wasn't great, but it was kind of like my first delve into building structures, Lego structures like that, freeform, and trying to get all the details and using reference images. Anyways, it was a little bit squashed and a little bit elongated, but it was my first experience in this kind of area. So then after that, we get to the point where I have a mini capstone. I thought, I'm gonna build the biggest thing out of Lego that I can think of. That ended up being a model of the Colosseum. With a friend, we built this large football-shaped stadium, and yeah, that was the biggest thing I had ever built up until that time. I also made a working guillotine when we were talking about the French Revolution. And eventually we get to the point where I build, I think maybe one of my favorite builds to this point. Now, the Titanic wasn't for a school project, it was just something I was doing on the side. All of these things had huge flaws scale-wise, like my Titanic was too squished, and the Sphinx, just trying to build organically is very difficult. But they were all still missing one thing. All of these pieces looked good on the outside, but they had no interior. So when I go to build structures like this, I usually think of a few things. Number one, what kind of pieces do I have available to me? When I built the Colosseum, I had lots of white pieces, so I made a white Colosseum. When I built the Titanic, I had lots of white, lots of black, and lots of red, so it was perfect. Number 2, is the structure popular enough that I will have easy access to measurements and reference images? Titanic, obviously very popular. I have a map of all the floors on my wall. The Colosseum, again, is a classic piece of architecture. So yeah, lots of reference images. 3, what parts of the structure, if any, are outside my skill level as a builder? So like for the Titanic, a lot of the small details, and also I wasn't able to make an interior because I just wasn't skilled enough and didn't have enough pieces to try and put something like that together. And number 4, does it look interesting? This one is probably the most subjective. I decide if it looks cool, that's it. So in order to see why I chose this specific build, let's look at those points. So 1, at the time, I had lots of tan colored blocks from my Sphinx previously, so the building had to be tan colored. 2, this specific structure, the Pantheon, is a very important piece of architecture and is probably one of the most well-preserved buildings of its time. So there's lots of diagrams and lots of drawings of this throughout history, actually. I can even look on Google Street View and I can go inside this building and look around like I'm really there. Number 3, generally the geometry of the outside structure seems simple-ish, like it's within my skill range to do these kind of shapes. Although the inside, getting what's in here could be difficult depending on the scale that I choose to build it at. And number 4, this building in particular is full of detail. Like the outside geometry, yes, it may be simple enough to build, but it's still like, it has character, to say the least. And the inside, again, it's full of details, so it looks good, it looks interesting, it's not boring. I spent around 5 hours just searching for a structure that I believed fit these criteria, and eventually I landed on this building here, the Pantheon. Okay, so I'm yet to really talk about like what the structure is. I've said the name a couple times. I've said it's the Pantheon, but you may not know or may not really have an idea of what that means. Perhaps I should give you some more information regarding that topic. This is a model of the Pantheon in Rome, Italy. My model sits around 35 centimeters tall, 43 centimeters wide, and 58 centimeters in length. That's with this closed. The interior of the model matches the interior of the real-life thing as closely as possible, which is expected, but as close to scale as possible as well. The Pantheon sports one of the largest concrete domes in the world, and the grandness of the building has inspired many architects throughout history, including Michelangelo, who supposedly said that this was the work of angels, not men, upon seeing the Pantheon. The structure is mostly stone, brick, concrete, and marble, primarily brick and concrete, and the interior was originally decorated heavily with gold leaf and other precious resources, but much of that was stripped away along with the exterior marble under Pope Urban VIII. Let's take a closer look at some of the individual elements. The portico, which is this section here, is a more Greek style as opposed to the more Roman style. So you see this kind of looks more like the like what the Parthenon would have looked like, this front section here, and the rest of it is more Roman style. The dome is 43.3 meters in diameter, and at the top of the dome sits an opening or oculus. This oculus is often called the eye of the Pantheon. It allows both light and weather inside the Pantheon and is 8.2 meters in diameter. The interior of the dome contains rings of indented boxes that decrease in size proportionally to the dome, and they're a clever way to reduce the weight of the dome. The size and height of the oculus is designed in such a way that at noon on April 1st, sunlight shines through this oculus and basically right through the giant bronze doors at the entrance. Under the dome, I have added a mechanism that allows the dome to open and stay open halfway, which is, I've showcased before. There we go. This is so you can see inside the dome, or inside the rotunda. And I've added a Lego lighting system to the dome to help improve the visibility of the interior, which isn't too bad right now, but there are also various tombs, statues, and art pieces within the rotunda, which I will briefly cover. First off, we have the Tomb of Raphael. Raffaello, yeah, I'll try and say that. I'll spell it out on screen. Raffaello Sanzio, known to us as Raphael, was the first person to be buried within the Pantheon in 1520. His remains are still there to this day, and above his tomb is a statue of the Virgin Mary holding baby Jesus. Next tomb is that of Victor Emmanuel II, over on this side, who is the first king of Italy and has a tomb in the right chapel of the Pantheon, which, like I said, is over here. Next is the tomb of Umberto I. His tomb is right on this side, the opposite side. Umberto was said to have actively enhanced the welfare of his people. The tomb of Queen Margarita. Queen Margarita was the wife of Umberto I, and her body was placed below that of her husband. The plaque is presented similarly, so they're basically one over the other and they look the same. There are a couple more tombs and many more art pieces, but those are the most significant visually. The final piece we're going to take a close look at is the Fontana del Pantheon. Fontana del Pantheon was originally constructed in 1575, but has been redesigned a couple times. The reason I built this piece additionally to the Pantheon itself is because most pictures you see of the Pantheon include this fountain, and the structure just doesn't seem quite complete without it. For another visual overview of my progress, here is a quick slideshow of pictures I took over the build process. So I think I've just about covered everything I know I need to cover. So thank you for watching. I guess I'll pass it back to... Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you'd like to see more content that's just kind of me doing my... just me doing whatever, then make sure to comment below and tell me your opinion. So, yeah. Thanks for watching, and thank you to Dylan and Elijah for supplying all the music that you heard throughout this video.